All right, here we go. This is the first podcast of Who Are You? A completely unfiltered podcast about life at college. So my name's Kernen. I'm a senior studying business at the University of Michigan. Got on my sweet t-shirt representing Ross School of Business. So I do study business here. I am at University of Michigan. I'll be the host of this new show. Well, I'll be interviewing students across the country who just want to talk about their own lives at the universities that they currently study at. And so there's a couple of reasons I'm doing this. One, I'm a senior. I have a lot of time on my hands. Two, I really like getting to know people, knowing their stories, knowing what they're interested in and where they want to go in life. And I think three, the biggest reason I'm doing this is a lot of other people are also interested in this, interested in hearing about this. So let's spread some stories, hop on this show, and talk about life at college. So this first episode, I am interviewing myself basically, but on future episodes, every episode is going to be of a student from a different university, hearing their stories about life at college. So if you're interested in being on the show, telling everyone, all of our viewers, what your life is like at your university, then please fill out the Google form below. Probably should take you 5 minutes. Really, it's a few questions, nothing too crazy. It's really easy to fill out. It's the first link below, and you definitely cannot miss it. So go fill that out. And now before getting into the actual show, there's one single request I have that's left, and that's to make sure you like the video, comment your thoughts on questions I should be asking in the next interview, what universities you're interested in me interviewing, and make sure to subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the podcast, subscribe everywhere. All right, so let's get into it. My name is Kernen, as you know. I'm a senior at the University of Michigan, and just a little bit of background. From Michigan, born in Michigan. Both my parents went to Michigan State, and I was always pretty interested in entrepreneurship, and I thought I want to explore business a little more. I thought studying business would support entrepreneurship. And so Michigan has a great program. I got into this school and applied to the business school after the first year, got in and was introduced to a lot more about business. After being introduced so much about business, I explored a little, found out that consulting was pretty cool. So I decided to do most of my internships around that area. And full-time after school, I'll be going to Boston Consulting Group, their Detroit office. I interned there last summer, going back full-time after this year. So love business, still dabbling a little bit with entrepreneurship. I've sold on Amazon for a few years now. My favorite product I've sold. I sold a color-changing unicorn mug. So it's purple to start off with, pour in hot water, changes to like rainbow unicorn mug. Crazy, right? That product did horrible in sales and lost quite a bit of money, but thankfully the rest of them made up for that. And I also have a pretty cool jewelry business that I've been drop shipping for about 7 months now. So that's what I use to keep up my free time. But back to being a student, back to what's going on at University of Michigan. I guess that was a short intro and just, so the number one question that people love searching for when it comes to learning more about college students is, okay, what's a typical day in the life look like? And really, it's one of the hardest questions you could ever ask to a student, because not only like day to day does it vary a ton, but semester to semester it looks completely different. And then comparing year to year, it's incomparable. You can't do it. It's not allowed. But I'll try and best describe a typical day as a senior at the University of Michigan. So personally, well, let's take a Monday, for example. Monday, I'm an early riser. Unlike most people you'll find at college. And so I'll get up around 7 a.m., maybe 8 a.m. I don't know. It's in my blood. I like getting up early. So I get up at 7 a.m., probably check the internet a little bit, check the social media pages, see what's going on. And then I'll do a couple hours of work. My first class wouldn't be till maybe 10 a.m., and usually I have 2 classes a day. So do some work from 8 a.m. to around 10 a.m. That could be e-commerce business, just doing the reading for a certain class I have later that day. And then I'll go to the business school where I have most of my classes, and most people in business have their classes. So let's see. Yeah, I'll have a class, I think, on this semester. Can't even remember. I'm in finance. That's one of them. Business economics is another one I have. So Basically, work a little bit in the morning, wake up. I won't eat anything. I like fasting a little bit in the morning. We'll have some coffee, but won't dabble with any foods until later in the day. So we'll fast throughout the day, have a class 10 to 11:30. It's like a lecture of about probably 80 students in each of the business school lectures. And you're in what's called a section. And basically, the classes you have each semester within the business school, it'll often be with the people of your section. So it's you'll be with the same 80 people pretty consistently for a lot of your classes. So you're in these classes, sweet, 10, 11:30, one class done, and then I'll have like an hour and a half break until my next class. And so in that case, let's see, I'll do a little more work, probably do the readings for my next class. And then after my second class of the day, let's say it's probably around 1:30 p.m. And that's it. Class is done for the day. If I'm in, now there's a lot of group projects in the Ross School of Business at the University of Michigan. They love emphasizing, okay, let's work in groups because that's what it's about in the real world. So I think that's what I really appreciate about the school. I'll definitely go into a lot more detail about that later, but I may have a group project, may meet with group just to touch base, see how things are going, and then see if we need to do anything that day. Otherwise, I'll continue to do a little homework, another few hours of work. Let's say it's 4:30. I probably had a meal in between then, something light, and then I'll go to the gym. I like working out 2 times a week. I probably do cardio most of the other days of the week, so that might be jumping rope or walking on that treadmill. But if I lift weights, that'll probably be around 2 hours of work. So lift for a couple hours, we'll shower a little, and then it's probably around 6, maybe 7 at night. And I would say that looking back on freshman, probably through junior year, I might go to a club meeting or meet with a group at that time. Right now, it's either I'll stay in and do some work, or I'll try and meet up with some other seniors or friends during the week just to hang out, because as a senior in Ross, you don't have a lot going on. The first 2 months, if you're recruiting, crazy busy, but after that, senior year really isn't too busy. The classes aren't too bad, so that's a typical day. I'll stay up till 11 or something and then hit the hay after doing a little more work. Love the YouTubes, love watching videos, love making videos. And so this will take up a little more time, but I would say overall that's what a typical day, although I don't really live that many of those specific typical days, that's what a typical day sort of looks like. And I think that really it's a very enjoyable semester this year for me. I really value getting fit, doing fitness, lifting, working on my businesses, and not having too stressful of a semester. So that's something I really enjoy about this semester specifically, is that I'm really able to explore my interests or do things that aren't stressful and that I really enjoy. So in that case, it's been very enjoyable. I think freshman year was also really enjoyable for me. And then sophomore and junior year, those got a little crazy. That's when we were really dialing it in on the GPA, making sure to do really well in the classes. And then, interesting enough, junior year at the University of Michigan, studying business in the fall semester, it's well known to be the most chaotic semester. Chaotic's a tough word. It's the most busy semester by far. And that's for a couple of reasons. So one, you're recruiting really hard that semester. There's a lot of companies who are interested in having looking for juniors to intern that following summer. And that's because they love seeing what you can do in the work environment, and then they'd give you the return offer. And you're in just as demand, if not probably more demand, senior year recruiting for companies, and that's because they want full-time employees where you can step on site after you graduate and get to work for them, make them some money. So fall of junior and senior year, that's when the recruiting takes place in the fall, and it's a really busy time. It's really busy, and that's when companies want you the most. During freshman and sophomore year, personally, I was looking throughout the whole year for internships to just help me get in great position for junior year when I wanted to have a lot of great things to show for on my resume and wanted to show that I had good experience, especially in consulting, because that's what I found I was interested in. Wanted to get those experiences, and because, like I said, they can't give you that return offer or have it be as efficient, or they can't give you that full-time offer. You're not in as much of demand during your freshman, sophomore year. So in that case, you'll want to really grind, get creative, do some cold emailing, and that's how you can find internships your freshman and sophomore year. And that's how I did it. I was always big in entrepreneurship, liked problem solving. And so in that case, consulting has some overlaps with that. And I think that if you enjoy problem solving, learning, being challenged in really new ways, and also if you're interested in data analytics, consulting is something you should definitely look into in the long run, whether that's now, recruiting right now, or thinking about or switching careers. It's always a good opportunity and something to be interested in. But I think that looking at University of Michigan as a whole, because as time progresses in the business school, you take more business classes. Junior, senior year, a little bit sophomore, but freshman year, you're not doing much. You're taking one class a semester in the business school, and basically outside of that, you're just knocking out distribution credits. So I think I haven't taken a distribution credit class in a while, but they want you to there's like 3 areas you can choose from. I think one is you can get really good at languages like Spanish, French, Arabic, or you can get really good at, I don't even know, like creative sciences, and there's another category. But you have to pick 2 out of the 3 to take like 4 classes in maybe. And so freshman year, you're really taking classes at the University of Michigan outside of the business school. And in those classes, I enjoy them a good amount too. I think that you're dealing with some larger lectures. You're dealing with some less intense classes for me, and at least how I feel about it compared to being in the business school. And I don't know why that is. Maybe I lean towards finding some easier classes to boost that GPA in the long run, because for recruiting, GPA was pretty important. I don't think it's everything. I think it's important. So I think the classes that I chose were a little bit easier, but naturally they were easier, like Biology 101, Science of Nutrition. I think in that class we talked about why water is good for you and read very basic articles on why water is good for us. So that's an example of a pretty simple class that I took. And you can find a lot of those at the University of Michigan, and there's a lot of options to take classes in different schools at the University of Michigan. So I think that overall the school has a lot of strong colleges and strong majors that you can choose from. And if you're interested in different minors, you do have to apply, and for certain majors you have to apply. But otherwise, I don't think the classes are too crazy. You'll want to do your research. There's some good websites out there. Rate My Teacher, Rate My Professor. I think those were classes that were pretty reliable for being used at the University of Michigan, and that I would just use to make sure that I took classes where the teacher was good, that had good reviews. And I think that if you apply that discipline to studying at your universities respectively, if there's a good number of reviews, it's probably a pretty accurate reflection of what these classes are being rated on. And so it's probably going to be accurate. So in that case, I went with those classes. And yeah, first year was really relaxing. And my favorite part about freshman year was that first semester on campus, I set up my schedule to have 5 classes on Monday and 5 classes, I think, maybe it was 4, on Wednesday. And so basically I had a 4-day weekend every single week. Wednesday night was my basically Thursday, Wednesday night was basically my Thursday night at school. I mean, most people have 3-day weekends. Most people don't have a lot of classes on Fridays. I, every week for a whole semester, had Wednesday through Sunday off, and then a day in between, like 2 full days of classes. You have to make sure you maintain your academics, maintain going to the gym, being disciplined, going out and all that. you have to make sure you can maintain that discipline in order for it to be enjoyable. Because I think pretty quickly you'd run into just this feeling of, wow, I literally have so much time on my hands. So be careful setting up that schedule. But if you think you can handle it, dabble around a little bit and then add or drop a class if you think that schedule won't work for you. So that's what I was up to freshman year. Great year. And then, like I said, as the years progressed, I took more business school classes, and that's just required by the business school. So I think that the classes I took overall at the University of Michigan were pretty enjoyable, nothing crazy. And then the business classes I took in the Ross School of Business, corresponding to my major, which is business and bachelor's administration. I believe that's right, a BBA. I think those classes I really enjoyed because the classes in the Ross School of Business, they're really strong introductory classes to whatever they're teaching. So I have a marketing class. You learn finance, you learn business law, you learn technical operations, which is a bunch of Excel. You learn business administration. I think it's called business economics. So you're getting introduced to a wide array of business courses that'll help you find out, okay, is business for you? And if it is for you, what do you think would work well for you? So personally, I really enjoyed my strategy class. I like my Excel class. And so in that case, naturally lean towards consulting. And that's something I really appreciated. I think that Ross does a great job of having these introductory level classes that are challenging for sure, but they do give you a lot of good sense and they try to apply it to the real world. So you know that this knowledge applied in the real world, it looks like this, or it'll feel like this. Do you like this? Because that's what it'll be in the real world. So I thought that was really helpful about Ross. I think going a little bit more on just, okay, so what's the environment like at Ross? First, you'll notice that it's, slipped my elbow there. You'll notice that it's pretty competitive. I think, and it's not cutthroat competitive. I think it's just in between cutthroat and friendly, some medium right there. That's how competitive it is. It's not that people are trying to screw over one another. It's just that, some people might not share their study guides if you go up and ask for it. People will help you out, especially if you have some sort of friendship, and people will be definitely more than willing to help you out. But at the end of the day, what contributes to making these classes competitive is that you're graded on a curve. And so for most classes, it's 20% get an A minus to an A, 40%, I believe, get a B minus to a B plus, and then 40% get C's or lower. And so I think this, what do I think of this? There's some controversy about how friendly this curve is grade-wise for students at the University of Michigan. I think the school claimed that we teach our classes with a little more rigor. We produce excellent students. We're one of the top 5 business programs, I believe, for undergraduates. So in that case, we can have a little bit more of a friendly curve where more people get higher GPAs, and that definitely helps in the recruiting process. So I think that's where, the importance of the curve, and then because everyone's grades are inflated, I think the average GPA in the business school is a 3.6. So because the grades, where otherwise maybe at NYU, the average GPA is a 3.1. So there, you're dealing with, if a recruiter is looking at applications from NYU and Michigan, if they don't specifically know the curve involved in both of these students getting GPAs, maybe they're both at the 60th percentile in their class, but the kid in Michigan, Ross, has a 3.7 GPA and the guy at NYU has a 3.1. There's going to be a massive advantage for that student at Ross recruiting for that specific spot. So it's something I appreciate about being at the school, definitely, and something I'm really glad that is available and considered for us students. So I think that's positive. It's competitive. I think that another major part of studying at this school is going to be let's see, group projects. I think that in 50% of your business classes at Ross, you're going to be involved in some group project. And so this is going to be, let's see, revitalizing the marketing campaign of a Fortune 500 company. You pick a company, you spend a month with your group coming up with a slide deck of 20 slides, a research report, revitalizing the marketing campaign for them based on some concepts you learn in class. So there's a lot of classes where you're going to have group projects, and based on the internship I had last summer, it was a consulting internship where you're working actively in a team. Everyone has a to-do list. Everyone has things they know they should be doing. Everyone has responsibility. I think that translates very well to the working world. All of these classes where you're in group projects. So that's something I definitely want to compliment about Ross, and it can be extremely overwhelming. When junior year fall, I told you it's the most intense semester probably in your undergraduate career at Michigan. And so you're in 4 business classes where each one of those has a group project. And then there's an overarching group project where you're graded, and then that grade applies to all 4 classes. So it's group projects on group projects on group projects. You have to become a wizard at time management, taking responsibility, communicating effectively with your team. So I think that there's a lot of positive aspects of the curriculum that translates to the real working world, which employers know. That's why they're here. That's why they want Ross students. And so I think that's a major positive. So far, good things Ross has going for it. We talked about, I think it has good curriculum, exposes you a lot to different areas of business. I think that another positive is actually the group projects. I think another positive is that the classes are difficult and they will challenge you, but not in super boring ways. It's not just a memorization test. It's really, can you think critically about moderately challenging or moderately complex information and then apply it? Can you solve some complex answers on these tests, and then we'll give you a grade for it? So I think in that sense, there's a lot of positives for Ross, and I think overall it really does prepare you well for being employed in the real world, and employers know that. I think switching over to some of the negatives of the business program. So I talked a little bit before about how it can be quite competitive. And there's going to be, I think there's 8 sections of 60 to 80 kids, so maybe 500 students total. In that case, there's going to be some variance in between those sections, between the IQ of students and their ability to do well on tests and in courses and classes. So in that case, you might find yourself in a class with a lot of very bright students, and because the curve on which you're graded on, the curve is based on your class. You're only graded against the other students in your class. So in that sense, if you have a pretty smart class, naturally you're going to find yourself having a harder time competing for a higher grade in that class. Only so many students get A's, and so if everyone's an academic wizard, you're going to get a B or you're going to get a C. Whereas if you're in a class that doesn't have as many competitive students who are bright, can think critically, and do well on these exams, then you're going to get a much better GPA. So that's one thing that's challenging. And in general, there's a lot of very smart students that are in these classes. So you're gonna be challenged. It's not gonna be easy to get an A in every class, but there's good amount of variance. I think that getting a consistent C's is something that you won't see. I think it's more of occasionally you fall behind in a class and you have difficulty catching up and rebounding. So I think that's the case where that's a downside. I think another downside is just personal. I think ultimately it's a good thing, but I think that something debated or students find annoying at Ross is that every class participation in a 60 to 80 person lecture, that can be worth 10% to 20% of your grade. And so there's a TA in the corner of your classes taking notes on what you said, the quality of what you said, if you're absent or present that day. And that turns out to be a good chunk of your grade. And so it won't be too common, but you'll have to deal with, first of all, raising your hand on a consistent basis if you want that 5% bump in the overall class, getting ahead on participation. But then also you might get a little annoyed because there's gonna be some students who raise their hand just to get the participation points, and then they say something like pretty dumb. Like the teacher will be on a roll, everything's making a ton of sense, and then a student, asks this question where everyone knows what's going on. Everyone knows that, this person knows the answer. It's a pretty simple question. They're just wanting to get those participation points. So that's a little annoying, but it's I think that public speaking and the incentive, goodness, couldn't think of that word. The incentive to raise your hand is there ultimately because it encourages public speaking. I mean, there's freshmen. I remember freshman year, I was a little bit nervous to raise those hands. I think because I knew that it would help give me a grade boost, and it was also just important to work on and overcome that public speaking fear. I think that really helped motivate me to speak up more, to overcome that fear, and that translated extremely well to voicing my opinion in the real world at the real internships, and then going forward too. So I think it's a negative a little bit, kind of sucks, but ultimately it's definitely a positive. And I think the last negative would just be it's a lot of work. They have high expectations for you. The courses are challenging, and group projects can be very challenging too. They want to crunch you on time. They want to challenge you in different ways inside and outside of the classroom. So it can be extremely overwhelming, especially sophomore year. Junior year, it's very overwhelming. But I think that it's for the right reasons. And I have a lot of good things to say about Ross, despite some of the things, despite the things I mentioned earlier. And so I think one actually really important point about attending the school business is that, so first semester of junior year, crazy semester, you're recruiting, you have these classes, you have an insane amount of group projects. And then second semester, you have the opportunity to study abroad. And so really it's taking these pass-fail classes abroad. You knock out a lot of business classes or business electives that you would have had to take at Michigan, but you're taking them abroad. You're studying at a different school, and personally, I chose to study at the Stockholm School of Economics. And yeah, I was in Sweden for 5 months last semester, because last semester was the semester before my fall senior semester, which is this one. So last semester, winter of my junior year, I studied in Sweden at the Stockholm School of Economics. Very, very fun. Really enjoyed it. The classes I took were mostly around, I think it was like psychology of work, psychology of finance, psychology of economics. So I took a lot of cool classes, and then just got to travel a little bit. Went to the Netherlands, went to the UK, and also I joined the cheerleading team there, which was a ton of fun. Cheerleading in Sweden is nothing like the U.S. Really, here at the University of Michigan, if I was to join the cheerleading team, that would be like 20 hours a week of practice. I don't even know. It would be a lot. And in Sweden, it was only 4 hours a week. And so I got to be on a team it was myself and another international student, and then 16 Swedes. They all spoke great English. And we just cheerleaded. Yeah, we competed in the Netherlands, got second place at the competition, and then had a great time. So nightlife in Sweden was great. Listened to a ton of fun music out there because I had a lot of time on my hands, and I'm a big Spotify guy, so played a lot of music out there, hung out with a lot of people, and it was a really relaxing semester, especially after grinding just so hard that previous semester. So I think that's the overview of what my life has been like, studying at the University of Michigan as a whole, and then studying in the business school specifically. And so I think that just to keep on going with this whole thing, I think that giving a little more insight into what freshman year was like, I think that personally, you'll find that you have a lot more time. I think that you're only in class maybe 4 hours a day on average, maybe 5. I think that you'll find there's less consistent assignments compared to high school. So you'll have homework due every 2 weeks or every other week. You'll have an exam once every 2 months where it's just a midterm and final, and each one is worth 40% of your grade. I think you'll see that a lot more common, and really I don't think it's too overwhelming. Unless you know you're in 5 extremely hard classes, and upperclassmen have confirmed that these are some of the most hard classes on campus, I think that you'll be fine. You'll be fine. It's just an adjustment. You'll have to make sure that off the bat you're pretty disciplined. Sure, go and meet new people, try new things, but you'll want to make sure that you have a to-do list. You have Google Calendar is one of my favorite things ever. You're using that thing like crazy to figure out when your classes are, noting when your exams are, when assignments are due, and all that fun stuff. But really, you're living in a dorm first year. I was talking to another freshman who just moved in recently. Basically, this is the way this is what blows my mind. But this is what I've heard from all the people I've talked to who roomed blind. Somehow 80%, I think it's 80%, but 80% of the time you room with someone who turns out to be a great friend, or they turn out to be a great match as your roommate. And so 80% of the time you have someone who has a similar sleep schedule, who likes the same things you do, who you like hanging out with. And then 20% of the time you find someone who is a brutal roommate. They have a completely opposite sleep schedule. They have a completely different view of having friends over or hanging out with certain people than you do. And it turns to a one full year of pain. So in that sense, I knew the roommate who I lived with in my dorm freshman year. But in that he's just a high school friend, longtime friend. We knew he'd get together well, and we did get along very well, but I don't think it's tough. I don't think you should room blind. I know the percent odds may be something like 80%. It works out well, but that's my idea. But otherwise, I think freshman year went well. I made sure to join an entrepreneurship club right off the bat. I think that you should absolutely apply to as many clubs as possible. Freshman year, you'll probably show up to you'll probably be in 5 clubs, maybe 3 or something, and then you can consolidate from there. If you're in 3 clubs, maybe take one out and then continue with that club. Clubs, and I'm talking like about academic clubs. Academic clubs are a great way to meet new people, to learn about new things, to be in a community with people you find interesting. If you want to try something new with it, then go ahead. Join a film club. You've never done film before. I saw some freshman. He doesn't sing. He's never sang before. He made it past like 5 rounds in the a cappella club and made it to the final round. Unfortunately, didn't get it, but I thought that was really awesome. Just trying something new, and ultimately joining a club, joining a fraternity or Greek life. I think it's a very good option. You can always cut it out, but after 2 weeks, you can always find that if you have too many commitments, you can cut something out. But you can't cut something out if it's not there. You can't add something on miraculously after all these applications close after the first few weeks. And so personally, I was in an entrepreneurship club first semester. Absolutely loved it because it did have this sort of social vibe to it, where we would hang out outside of the club, but also do a lot of fun things inside the club. That next semester, I joined a club called Capital Consulting Group, and learned more about consulting. Again, another very social club where I met a lot of fun people, made a lot of great friends, and also was just a great resume builder for trying something new, learning something, helping some organizations and businesses with whatever challenges that they had. So I really, 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 really encourage applying to as many, because some of these applications are very competitive, and you might not know the degree of competitiveness. Goodness gracious, hit my microphone. Sorry about that. You might not know the competitiveness of a lot of these clubs. So apply to a lot of them. It takes like 5 extra minutes to copy and paste and change around some words and all that stuff. So, and really just because if you don't get any of these clubs, I talk to freshmen who say that they literally have not a lot to do, or they're finding friends through just classes where that's not the best setting to naturally make friends, in my opinion. Sure, you can absolutely make some friends there, but naturally the best percent chance to find some great friends and also learn a lot, be in a really cool environment, join clubs, apply to a ton of clubs. And that is something that I really appreciate about freshman year. I think that going a little bit more into like the social side of things. So freshman year, personally, I went out, and by went out, that means I won't I won't condone underage drinking or any of those like extreme. I'm not sure if extreme's the best word, partying, but you go to these parties maybe once a week or something like that. Personally, I did. Some weekends I went out twice a week, but I like parties personally. I love socializing, but personally I love just hanging out with people, going to game days, going bowling, for example. There's some really cool bowling alleys around here, hanging out. I love entrepreneurship, so if we want to hang out with some friends, trying to brainstorm ideas together or something, I really like being in social settings outside of just parties. So that's something I really enjoyed about freshman year and stuck with. So that's what I did party wise. I know some people, not me. I know some people where I think fake IDs are really big on campus, and there's talk of certain clubs or bars around campus that are easier than others to get into. So some freshmen would lean towards going to those bars or whatever, probably once or twice a week. But otherwise, that's I try to socialize a good amount freshman year. I think that my patterns have been similar, probably once a week. I'd say that junior year, personally, I cut down because that was just an absolute grind of a semester. And so I couldn't really afford to be too tired the next day after a long night of partying. So that's why I cut it down a little bit that junior fall semester. And then going to Sweden, all my classes were pass fail. So in that case, I turned up the hanging out and socializing a little bit just because I had more time and was less stressed about all those things. So that's sort of a snapshot into what the social life is. And I think that now, my senior year, so you have a good idea of maybe once, twice a week for the first 2 years. And then senior year, I think it's back to twice a week. There's a bar with dollar drinks on Thursdays. Love going to that with some friends. You got to get there so early. But we go there with some friends. And then Saturday, there's another bar that a lot of scorekeepers that a lot of people like going to. So that's the current schedule, twice a week. I enjoy those settings. I don't think that there's a lot of ways to socialize and hang out and fun other bars or less club-like places to go to than those areas or those places. So that's what some people go with. Those are my habits senior year. And so that's what that sort of looks like. So you have right now I'd say you have a pretty good idea of, okay, what do the first 4 years look like? What's the social scene look like? And just in case some people are wondering, I'd say half of my like best friends are people that I've known since high school that are still here, that either go here, who I keep in touch with most, about half. I'd say the remaining 2 quarters, 1 quarter is best friends I've met through these clubs or organizations, and then the other quarter is just stumbling into people randomly, whether it's we were on a group project together or we had class together or, like I said, entrepreneurs. I love seeing what people are up to at this university, so I just hit up some entrepreneurs if I saw that they went to Michigan and had a really cool business. So just said, hey, want to learn more about what you're doing? And so that's how I met my most closest friends, I would say, through the university. So overall, that's a picture of what my social life is like, what the day in the life is like, what the academics are like. I think to move into some more critical questions, I think one interesting to think about is like overall, what do I really like about being here on a very general level, and then if I would change anything differently along the way. So we're going to grab a sip of this water because we've been talking for at least 35 minutes, around 35 minutes, and so far, hopefully it's been a good show, but we are parched, so. Alrighty. So I think that thinking about what do I like in general about the University of Michigan, what I think a lot of people would say. So I think that the campus is amazing. The weather is not too hot. The weather kind of sucks. It's sporadic. I think that this year we haven't had too much rain, but you'll see some years where there's a lot of rain, and then every other day you're having to bring an umbrella. You show up to class soaked, or if you forget your umbrella, you show up extremely soaked to class, or you just skip class. I know some people who do that, but the weather can be terrible, and then especially in the winter. The winter can be horrendous just with an insane amount of snow. Sometimes it'll get down to 0 degrees with insane winds. And so the weather, especially, I think maybe it's around 10% of people who go here are from California. So to them, it's a pretty brutal shock. Having to deal with 6 inches of snow coming down on you every week. So that's definitely a negative. But going back to the positive, I think the campus is great. That's because I think a lot of the bus system is pretty good for helping you navigate campus. If you're a student, you get to ride the buses for free. I also think that naturally, just a lot of classes and dorms are very close together. So if you're in the business school, there's so many places where you can live very close to the business school for nothing too expensive. And then the business school is located really close to where all the statistics classes are. If you're interested in statistics or psychology classes, if you're interested in those too, it's like a 5-minute walk, 10-minute walk max in between those classes. So once you're on the heart of campus, central campus, it's very easy to get around and go to all your classes. And then the campus is kept pretty clean. There's the diag where it's a diag because there's big crosswalks. In the middle, there's a diag. And around the perimeter of this massive area is where a lot of these school buildings are. But in the middle, a really nice grass park where on a beautiful day you can string up a hammock, go get some food with friends, and hang out there. So that's a pretty big plus because I went to Michigan State for the Michigan State tailgate or game once. And Michigan State's campus is huge. I mean, we're talking like 2 miles from some dorms to the game. Whereas at Michigan, sure, some dorms are like that far apart, but at Michigan, most students don't have to take the bus to get to their classes. At Michigan State, I think a lot of people do, and I'm not sure if that's too common at most universities. So walking, not having to drive to class, not having to bus to class, that's a very nice plus. I think another plus just about the campus in general, I think it's kind of expensive, the food, but it's some killer food we have in Ann Arbor. Personally, some of my favorites, just to give some shout outs. I'm a big burrito guy, so we have BTB Burrito, Pancheros, great restaurants. People are big fans of No Tie. There's a lot of fun cafes, hipster cafes we got going on. Lots of pizza, and really anything else that you can find. So a lot of really good restaurants. If you want, I personally think the meal plans at university or the dorm, what is it? The dorm food? I think that's what you technically, or meal plans in general provided through the university. I think that those are actually pretty good. They're a little pricey too, maybe like $11 a meal, $15 a meal if you get one of the smaller plans. But I think they have some good food through there too. So there's a lot of good options with eating on campus, in my opinion. And then I think that another big plus is that I personally have found that I like most of the students. It's tough to assign a quality or characteristic to a whole student body. And I want to say that Michigan has somewhere around 20,000 students. I don't even know. But let's say we have 20,000 students. I think that the most people I know are pretty friendly, not too antisocial. I think that people in the right setting will open up, be social, be friendly. And then that's about all I have to say. I think that otherwise there's a lot of variance in these other qualities. I think that we got some smart people around here for sure, but I don't think that we have absolute 200 IQ people left and right when you're walking through the diag. I think it's a lot of smart people, a lot of very friendly people, maybe a little more antisocial than other universities. I don't know. That's my opinion. And so those are the big pluses to university. I also want to say very new, clean, nice buildings you're studying in most of the time. So that's a big plus. I think that some of the negatives. So we made sure to say that the weather can be pretty brutal. And we're talking rain. If it's a bad month, rain like once every 3 days. In the winter, terrible winds, terrible snowstorms pretty frequently, and they essentially never cancel class. So you're going to want warm clothes, you're going to want your Timberlands, you're going to want that nice warm jacket to hike your way all the way through a ton of snow. So I guess some other negatives. That's pretty tough. I think personally I've had a very positive experience here. I've really enjoyed a lot of what I've been doing. I think that maybe a negative in some of I'd say maybe the social life could be a little bit better. I don't know. I don't really know. I guess I'm comparing this to being in Sweden, Stockholm, which was a heck of a time. But we could have a club or two. It's a lot of bars that we're dealing with at Michigan. Clubs are kind of fun. It's better clubs, I should say, for just the social life. I mean, that's personally what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking. But so be it. Maybe another negative or criticism, and this can be a positive. I might just be a little bit too critical about this, but we gotta get a good football team going. We've had a good football team. We just got blown out, I think 35-18, Wisconsin this past weekend. But Michigan, compared to some of the other state schools who have won some big games, we always lose to Ohio State. We struggle against other Big Ten teams. So it's sort of comparing ourselves. We have a good football program. It's really fun to go to the games. It's so fun to tailgate for these games. So I think that this overall is a positive, maybe. Let's just say that we have a lot. Going to these sports games is a ton of fun, like volleyball, field hockey is fun, soccer is fun to go to, and especially the basketball and football games. They're a blast. I'm just saying that it would be cool if we had this gig where once every 10 years we won something huge. We've done well. NCAA tournament final for men's basketball, I think, 2 years ago. And then for Michigan football, we've done well. We've made some big games, but we haven't won too much. So overall, I've convinced myself that's a huge positive compared to other schools. Having big sports teams who are good and will win most games, it'd be pretty cool to have a sports team who would actually win just once in every 10 years. So that's what I'm thinking. So yeah, going a little more, I'd say that the tailgates are something really unique to Michigan Because for any home football game, basically all day Saturday, there's frats are hosting tailgates. There's some random houses hosting big tailgates, and you just go there. If you're 21, you get to drink. And it's fun. You listen to music insanely loud. You see all your friends who are also going to the game. The big house, the stadium in University of Michigan holds 110,000 people, I think it is, and every game is always sold out. It's a ton of fun to go to. So you hang out all day. You go to the game. Usually it's a noon game, so by 3 p.m., you get to watch the whole game, or you stay for a half. You get some food, hang out with people, and then you can go out that night if you want to. So that's what the tailgates are a ton of fun, and I'm so excited that this year Michigan has a lot of home games. Being a senior, so I won't be here anymore, but I'll make sure to come to a few tailgates in the future. But the tailgates are really unique. A lot of people go extremely hard for them and have a ton of fun with them. I think also in regard to the things to do overall. So going to sport, if you're looking for things to do, you're not in a club, like outside of academics or outside of not thinking about academic club or something along those lines, there's a lot of really fun things to do. So first, because like I said, we have around 20,000 students here, intramural sports are going to be pretty intense. They're going to be really intense, actually. And I proudly can say that I was IM champion I was on a team that was IM champion for soccer, I think my sophomore year in the fall. And it's like the tournament started off where I think we had to win like 8 rounds to be the champion, but we won all 8 rounds. Just insane players. So you can find and like IM games are once a week for a given sport like soccer, but you can be on multiple teams at once. And like multiple teams that like different sports. So like men's soccer would be one sport, and then there's also co-ed soccer you could do, or you can do those two, and then you can also do something like volleyball. So there's a lot of options you can do to have fun. Well, in that regard. Also, in regard to just things to do, going to these sports games is a ton of fun. Like basketball, football. Like I said, good teams. Just if we won once every 10 years, that'd be kind of fun. I think in addition, there's some great food around here you can go to. Bowling's kind of big around here. There's some nice alleys. No idea what they're called, but been to them a couple times now, and those are pretty fun. Otherwise, just hanging around campus. There's a lot to do. There's events. There's like creative events in Ann Arbor at least once a month. Sometimes there'll be a whole week long, and I think one example of that is something like Art Week or something like that, where artists just show their art in the streets of Ann Arbor, show you what they got going on. You walk around, there's some live music, maybe a little free food. Yeah, so it's a good time. And I don't know, this just randomly hit my mind, but I guess it'd be kind of fun in these interviews going forward when I'm interviewing other students. You know, if there's a funny story or two, definitely want to hear that. Just to give some livelihood to their stories or whatever. But I think one of my favorite stories, I don't know what you guys are gonna think of this. I think it's kind of a cool story, but it was my sophomore year, whereas Michigan State. So in that case, East Lansing I think is maybe an hour from Ann Arbor, and East Lansing is Michigan State. So a lot of Michigan State students come into Ann Arbor to party for the game, just to tailgate and do everything. And so, you know, it's a lot of partying that day. And so yours truly, we partied hard along with a lot of friends, and then basically went back to my apartment. It's a night game. I think it's 8 p.m. Michigan State. Went back to my apartment to go change, and as I was changing, basically just fell asleep on the bed, slept for 4 hours, and woke up, and it's like 10 p.m. right now. And so I missed the first 2 hours of the Michigan State game. And so I was pretty I was extremely tired still. it was pouring rain outside, and I was just so tired. I thought there was no way I was making this game. All my friends were downstairs because they went to the game for a little bit, and then it was just downpouring, so they left. And so I woke up, and I said, no, I'm going to this game. And so I sprinted to the game super late. And I think I got in, and there's like maybe 10 minutes to go in the third quarter. And basically couldn't find anyone because, first of all, you don't get great cell reception at the big house. Second of all, it's pouring rain, so not many people are going to be checking their phones and getting it wet. So basically walked down to like the fifth row. They're not really checking tickets. And just camped out in the fifth row. And so it's pouring like crazy. And I wanted to have some fun and thought a kind of a funny thing to do would be, there's all these, this is crazy. And this is when I was a sophomore. So don't criticize me too much, but I found some water bottles on the ground, like floating in between these stands. And so there's so much rain that it's like a waterfall pouring down these steps. And so I fill up all like 6 water bottles with this rainwater, seal the caps, have them like this, have all 6 of them holding in my hands. And so it's pouring rain still. I'm in the 5th row. I'm wearing a tank top t-shirt and some short shorts, and everyone else has these like ponchos on, or everyone's like dressed up more. And so I walk down to the first row, and basically the guy was standing in front of a gate just to get down to the field, and it's like this gate that's connected to the first row. You open it, there's some stairs, and then you're on the field. Super easy. And I literally told this guy, like, hey, I have some waters. I forgot the player who I said, but it was some like linebacker I could see just literally right there. And so I said, I literally have these waters for him, and told the guy, and he was extremely confused, but I sort of just kept walking, and he just very hesitatingly, in a very confused way, like opened this gate so I could get onto the field. And so I walked and my thought was, I just want to hang out behind Harbaugh. And I swear to God I did this. I swear to God. So I'm on the field with these like crinkled up 6 water bottles full of rainwater, trying to just hang out and like blend in, despite, like I said, like sleeveless shirt, short shorts. Everyone else is wearing ponchos and hiding. And so I'm on the field now, and all these students are like super confused, I can tell. And I walked, I think, 20 yards. It was almost at half field when all of a sudden, I got somebody grab my shoulder, starts saying, like, what are you doing? He was just as confused as anyone could be in that situation. I said, I'm giving some water bottles to Harbaugh. I switched up my story. Instead of a linebacker, because I was past him now, I said, I'm giving them to Harbaugh. And he said, absolutely no. Like, said, drop them, threw me back up in the stands and said, definitely don't do that again. I won't do that again. Not planning on doing it again. But, it's kind of a cool story of, I was on the field during the Michigan State game trying to give some water bottles to Harbaugh. So that's my claim to fame, maybe? I don't know. That's just a fun story I had. So I think we've talked about a lot. You know what the University of Michigan has been like for me. I think that to wrap up this podcast and the first podcast ever of Who Are You, I want to finish up with some general tips I have for if you're going to University of Michigan or you're just planning going to college in general. So I think that one of the biggest tips I have, and some of these might be overlapping with what I said before, but one of the biggest tips I have is, sorry to say this, like, focus on getting a good GPA. I think that having a good GPA never hurts. And so the ways to attain your great GPA, find some extra classes that you can take that are easy, that help boost the GPA. And then in addition, make sure to work hard in your regular classes. I'm not saying I only took blow off classes. I'm saying like maybe every other semester I took an easier class that was also a little bit interesting, like a psychology class or an education class. So I would take one of those classes. And then I'd work extremely hard in my business classes. And I think that having a strong GPA definitely positioned me better in interviews and recruiting overall, which is ultimately like you're at a university, in my opinion, to learn and then also be prepared for the next steps. And so in that case, like considering some of the next steps, I mean, it's ideally most students should have a goal of being employed in general. And so in that sense, having a high GPA, whether or not it's right to meet the cutoff for a certain job, it's important just to have it, right? If you want a certain job, having a high GPA really helps with that. So take classes you're interested in, pursue a major you're interested in, but pursue a major that has a potential carryover to a job that is something you're interested in doing, and also focus on a good GPA. So that's my opinion. I think that a second thing I would emphasize is sort of similar, just considering how education is preparing you for the next steps. I think pretty actively search for internship opportunities and recruiting opportunities. Get unique with it. Cold email people. If your family has some sort of strong network, use that network. See if there's any ways in which they can help you find a job. Otherwise, look at startups in the area. Email a ton of companies saying you're really interested. You took this Excel class. You took a Coursera class on Tableau, coding, something unique. Get some big names and some great experiences on your resume. And it's a numbers game. I applied to 30 people sophomore year and got one internship after an insane wave of rejection. So it's such a numbers game early on in this process. And if you're able to get strong internships early on, it makes recruiting full-time so much easier. So definitely go invest yourself in working hard and good GPA. And then also making sure to, be creative and search hard for internship opportunities. So I think those two are really big. I think my third big piece of advice is really find communities that you can get involved in at your respective college. And for me, this ties into finding clubs. This was finding an entrepreneurship club where I was able to interact with like-minded people, brainstorm some really fun ideas in a more professional setting, but then also socialize a lot with them. And like I said, I met a good chunk of my absolute best friends through those clubs. And so in that case, you'll want to experiment with different communities. Apply to a ton of different communities. As soon as you step on campus, apply to these different clubs. You send out maybe 30 applications, maybe just 20. But I think more the merrier. Have options. It's so much better to have options than to be panicked and just go through a whole semester wishing you applied to more clubs and activities. So find things to do. Find communities to join where you can interact with interesting people in a professional and social setting, professional and more personal or less professional setting. I think that dynamic, and that can also be attained through joining Greek life, for example. I think that in Greek life, there's some emphasis on like studying together, having study halls together, but also lots of emphasis on being social. And then some academic clubs, there's much more greater emphasis on being social, on doing academic activities or being in a professional setting rather than being in a social setting. So experiment, check out these clubs, see what you enjoy. And because I think that finding great friends makes the college experience so much more enjoyable in that you can, if you're going through some issues, you can talk to them. If you want to go out and have fun, you can hit them up. And normally you'll find that you will talk to these people and will engage with these people on a frequent basis. So if you want ways to meet a lot of people and get to know a lot of people very well and naturally find people who can be amazing friends, then you're going to want to join and apply to a ton of activities and clubs. And as time goes on, junior, senior year, these clubs and activities and organizations aren't looking as closely to accepting you. So you're going to want, especially in freshman or in the highest demand, freshman second semester, and next in the highest demand, and then sophomore year first semester are third in demand. But you'll definitely want to apply to a ton of clubs as much as possible. I think that basically the fourth biggest tip I have, I personally would say this one's mixed. I'd say it's mostly my recommendation is getting involved in working out and exercising consistently. But I think also make sure to find some interests, things you're interested in, because you can't just always spend time with people. There's going to be times where maybe you're studying by yourself and then you can't just go and meet up with some people. Have things that you can do on your own just to fill in the time and have it be productive to some extent. I personally love entrepreneurship. I love building businesses on my own and also in social settings. So that's something I can do on my own. But I think that going back to the point of the importance of fitness, I think that first of all, it's always good to be in shape. I think that working out, even if you don't know what you're doing in the gym, it's great to just get some reps in, to try new things, to exercise consistently, to look better, to feel good. You feel good too. That's a major part of being fit. In addition, it helps calm down the freshman 15 that's incoming to the majority of freshmen out there. So watch out for that, because actually that hit me. I gained probably 10, 15 pounds freshman year, and working out helped make sure that some of that weight I gained was definitely muscle. So you're going to want to work out. It helps. Might as well be healthy, right? Might as well feel better. Might as well have something to do if you're bored and feel good about yourself. And in addition, you might get carried away with it in a very positive way. You might want to do it 5 times a week. Great. You can meet people there too. And I think it's an extremely healthy habit, which is extremely positive and has a lot of benefits overall. But that ties into just, find some things you can enjoy doing on your own, like whether it's, building a business yourself or learning how to speak another language on your own. Do those things too. So I think overall, in regard to the fitness, I think it would be really cool with this channel and with this podcast is to create a lot of hopefully great resources that you can use and have access to. So personally might just whip up a random Excel program for working out and then make that available to all of you. So if you're interested in that, definitely let me know in the comment section below. But yeah, overall, I think to try and wrap up this podcast, it's overall, Michigan has been great. Ross School of Business has been great. I think that based on those 4 tips, I think they're very applicable to any setting, any college you go to. So definitely incorporate those tips. And yeah, I think we can just wrap up this podcast. I took over about 75 minutes, not too shabby. It's a good first episode, but if you are interested in being on the Who Are You podcast, take 5 minutes. First, you got to scroll down a little on the page. Then you're going to want to click the first link in the description and just fill out the survey. Super simple. I don't think we'll have a ton of applications up front. So a good chance I'll be reaching out, wanting to get to know you a little better, and then hopefully set up this podcast where I get to interview you. Basically, a lot about the same things I talked about today. So if you're interested, make sure to fill out below. And yeah, you'll be having the opportunity to tell everyone about what your life is at university. And really, it's super simple. getting started with this process. So make sure to check out the link in the description below. Also, please make sure to like this video. It helps so much with the YouTube algorithm. It's crazy. So if you take 1 second, you can turn that little like button blue. Do that really quick. And then also, I really would appreciate just honest feedback on questions you think would be better to answer in these interviews with students. You can also comment any questions you have about my experience at the University of Michigan too. Would be happy to answer those. And so after you comment, make sure to subscribe. Subscribe here. Check out the podcast too if you enjoy those, listening on the go. Check out the podcast and subscribe in both locations. But yeah, overall, that's the first episode of Who Are You? Hope you enjoyed. Hope you have a wonderful day and hope to see you in the next episode.